The more you get your users involved in the development process of the model, the more likely they are going to use it and adopt it going forward. It's a learning process and you'll never get it perfect.
Tell me that horror story. Worst model you built, you inherited, you've seen.
I do have a lot. One that sticks out, I think it's applicable to everyone that works in any kind of environment with spreadsheets, was
Jon Acampora is the founder of Excel Campus, a Microsoft MVP, and a true Excel enthusiast with over a decade of experience in corporate finance. He's on a mission to make Excel faster, easier, and believe it or not, a little more fun. With over 600,000 YouTube subscribers and a library of powerful tips, tools, and courses, Jon helps people save time, automate the boring stuff, and actually enjoy working with spreadsheets.
Someone recently asked me on YouTube, you never in your show define what a financial model is, but if I asked you, how would you define a financial model?
I think any financial model includes inputs, calculations, and output.
What does it take to become a Microsoft MVP?
I'd say most of the people that I know that have become MVPs over the years, it's not their sole focus. For most people, the award is kind of a byproduct of just all the contribution they've done.
The contribution is key. You have to have a technical level of proficiency. They got to be comfortable, you know how to use the tool and you can speak to it, but it's really that community engagement, however you choose to do. Will Excel ever die?
Never.
Do you think AI will build the models for us in the future? Financial Modelers Corner is the world's premier modeling podcast. It is brought to you by Financial Modeling Institute, the world's leading financial modeling accreditation organization. Welcome to Financial Modelers Corner. I am your host, Paul Barnhurst, aka the FP&A guy. This is a podcast where we talk all about the art and science of financial modeling with distinguished guests from around the globe. The Financial Modelers Corner podcast is brought to you by the Financial Modeling Institute. FMI offers the most respected accreditations in financial modeling. And that is why I completed the Advanced Financial Modeler last year. And this year, I'm working on the Chartered Financial Modeler. This week, I'm thrilled to welcome our guest to the show, Jon Acampora. Jon, welcome to the show.
Paul, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, really excited to have you. I think last time I had you, it was you and Oz in Tucson.
That's right. Yeah, we were at the Excel Esports event.
The esports event.
Yeah.
And I think we learned who your Jesus was then. Who was it again?
Well, you have to be clear. That's my Excel.
I figured you might elaborate on that. I couldn't resist putting it that way.
That would be the one and only Mr. Ken Poles. I'd say he's my Excel Power Query Jesus.
So anyway, I had to bring that one in. That was our fun. And did you listen to the Ken episode where he said I had to use that?
Yes, I heard that.
Let me give a little bit of Jon's background and then we'll jump into conversation here. So Jon runs excelcampus.com. And he's all about making Excel easier and more fun. And I can attest to that. I've learned from many of his videos. He's been a Microsoft MVP for 11 years, has over 600,000 YouTube subscribers. I thought my 25 was pretty good. And a regular host of the Microsoft Excel World Champion events. His love for Excel is probably obvious to anyone who knows him. But what really drives him is helping people. At the heart of his mission is a genuine passion for helping the community harness the power of Excel by eliminating mundane tasks. Jon strives to make Excel not only a tool for efficiency, but also a canvas for fun and creativity. With innovative Excel add-ins and insightful online courses, he's paving the way for a more efficient and enjoyable spreadsheet experience. So we start every episode with this question, Jon. Tell me that horror story. I know you have one. Worst model you built, you inherited, you've seen, kind of that horror story of a financial model you had to work with.
I do have a lot. It's been a long career, as you just alluded to in the intro. But one that sticks out, and I'm going to share this one because I think it's applicable to everyone that works in any kind of environment with spreadsheets, was a model that I inherited. It was actually several. There was a guy that, I used to work in FP&A before I started Excel Campus.
Man after my own heart.
Yeah.
Thumbs up for that.
And of course there was a guy that came before me that worked at the company that built a lot of the models. and he used a lot of VBA, a lot of macros. I think his background, I never got to meet him, but I think his background was more in IT and engineering. He's probably more of an engineer.
Sure.
So he was using VBA to solve problems that you could probably easily solve with a pivot table or even a relatively simple formula.
Ugh. So basically coding everything, whether it needed to be or not.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of complexity comes with that because now you're trying to interface between the VB editor in the background and the spreadsheet, and a lot of hidden processes going on and stuff for the average user that's just using this model and doesn't understand. And of course, I won't share his name, but everyone around the office would kind of say, oh, this is, I'll just say Bob. This is one of Bob's spreadsheets. And they kind of hated it and always were scared of it, stuff like that. Since I knew VBA, I became the person that could hopefully fix all these models. But the big lesson I've learned from that is that whenever you create a model, you're creating what I call leaving your legacy, really. You're kind of leaving your legacy on this model that other people are going to inherit from you eventually, and might also be like cursing your name in the future. So I've always tried to take that as the learning lesson to make models much easier to use for others that don't have the same skill set that you have as an Excel pro.
I am confident more than one person has cursed my name. They definitely didn't refer to me like some refer to Ken when they inherited my model. I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, but it's good. I think it's really good just for people to think about that when they're designing a model, because it's very easy to use very complex formulas. And a lot of times we think, oh, well, this is going to help me keep my job security because I'm using all this complex stuff and no one else is going to be able to understand it or use it. But I think oftentimes that can backfire, and it backfired for me in my career because then all of a sudden you can't even go on vacation without, the company calling you, emailing you, hey, how do we do this? How do we update this thing? And that kind of stuff. So there's a balance there that.
I had a guy on FP&A Tomorrow, my other podcast, who shared a story where he had gone so deep in VBA and being complex with the model that he was so relied on, it really delayed him getting promoted like almost a year in the company because they were worried he wouldn't, if they put him in a new role, how was someone going to manage that? So you really, and I think early on in the career, as you first start to learn it, it's really easy to get complex. As you start to age and been through it more times and get more experience, you realize, I think the real challenge is doing it efficiently, automating while still making it understandable, simple enough that 95% of the people who are going to inherit it can still manage it. There's always some cases you might use VBA or some things that are going to get complex, but I think it's kind of as you experience more and more, you learn that. I don't know if that's kind of what you found, but definitely for me, I can remember building some complex formulas where it's like, hey, that was not the right way to do that.
100%. Absolutely. I think it's a learning process and you'll never get it perfect, right? That's the other thing to make sure that everyone knows is it's never something that you'll get absolutely perfect, but just being aware of it can really go a long way in trying to figure it out. And another thing too is one other tip from that I kind of learned is that the more you get your users involved in the development process of the model, the more likely they are going to use it and adopt it going forward, right? So that's another big piece of it too. Don't just like spend, I mean, I made this mistake where I spent months creating a model and then, give it to everyone to use. And they're like, well, it doesn't do this one little thing. And it's, we're not going to use it because it doesn't use, it doesn't have this feature that we need kind of thing. So then you're going back to the drawing board. So getting everyone involved along the way can really help with, usability and they also feel kind of involved in a part of the process.
Yeah, 100% agree. You get the usability benefit. There's also something to be said for them feeling like they have some ownership in the whole process. One more question around the financial model. Go ahead. You're going to say something on that.
Oh, no, I think that's good. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So I'm curious. Someone recently asked me on YouTube, they're like, you never in your show define what a financial model is. So we've been trying a few episodes to ask different people. And we'll probably put together a video at some point with different clips of how everybody defines a model and see how similar or different it is. But if I ask you, how would you define a financial model? What would be what you would consider one? What would you include in that, or how would you define it?
Yeah, I would keep it relatively simple in that I think any financial model includes inputs, calculations, and outputs, right? Kind of those three components. And that, I think, and maybe that's definition is a little too broad, but it opens like kind of the definition of a financial model up to more than just financial data, right? Like if your data might not be necessarily financial, but if as long as you're kind of inputting data somewhere, doing some calculations, and then have an output, I think it could fall under that umbrella. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'd love to.
Yeah,
You're the
yeah. So I go a little, I think, so there's a couple definitions I like. I really like one from Danielle Stein Fairhurst. I think you probably met her before. I know
yeah,
she was in Vegas last year, but she described it in one of her books. She goes, as long as it's dynamic and flexible, it includes inputs, outputs, and calculations, I'm willing to call it a model. Someone else had one where they added a little bit more. It has to help support answering something, some kind of
yeah,
decision. Otherwise, it's just a report. And I thought that was a good point, kind of saying, the model is really, you're supposed to be modeling something. It's a representation of real life, so it should help answer something. And so I thought that was a good. So those are some that I really like. So fairly similar to yours. I might just add a little bit more to it.
yeah. I like that. I do agree that there's a difference between a financial model and a report. So yeah, I like that nuance. Interesting. I'll think about it.
Yeah, so it is interesting to get different people's opinions. If you ever want to read a really esoteric and painful definition, go to the Federal Reserve Board and read how they define a financial model. I share it in one of my courses to kind of start with, here's your really technical definition. Now you can ignore that. Here's a more, kind of general one you'll see. And then here's a real simple, practical one.
Interesting. Oh, I'll check. Well, I might have like AI summarize it, but I'll check. I'll check.
Yeah, I'm sure they can. Or if you email me, I can pull it out of the deck and send it to you. It'd take me like 2 minutes. So
Yeah, that's
you
cool.
might get it from AI faster though, but it was pretty funny. I just like, using all these big words, and some of them I'm like, what does that word mean?
Right. Right. But a lot of money was spent on that document. So better be good.
I'm sure it was our money, but we digress.
Yeah. Let's not go down that road.
Yeah, we could be here a while. We might offend everybody by the time we're done. So we'll steer clear of that. All right. So you started your career working in accounting and finance. How did you end up starting your own Excel business? How did you go from kind of that accounting to FP&A to I'm gonna talk about Excel all day?
Yeah. It's an interesting journey. I think it was really born like probably a lot of, Excel, quote unquote, experts, or really just heavy Excel users within a role. You end up using Excel all day, every day, and you either love it or hate it. And I really loved it. I felt like it was this tool that you could be really creative with. Like I said, I did a lot of VBA coding. So I was really felt like it was almost a platform where you could develop applications with Excel. And that kind of led me down this road of I was still working in accounting and FP&A, but usually doing a lot of projects that required a bit more automation, a bit more creativity and things like that, versus just kind of, doing some of the other tasks that might be involved there. And so that led me into maybe a little more systems analyst type roles, business analyst type roles as well. And from there, it was kind of I started my blog, I think it was in 2009. And that was really just to share some of the add-ins and macros that I developed online. I didn't really have like a clear business idea or anything for this. It was not like I'm going to quit my day job and go start this online business and it's going to be an overnight success. It was a much slower path, where I was doing just some blogging here and there and some YouTube videos for years. And then started selling the add-ins online, and that didn't really make a lot of money. It was still kind of very much a hobby at that point. And I think it was in 2015 or 2016 I launched my first online course on VBA. It's called the VBA Pro Course, and that's between 2009 and 2016 I was also building an audience, building an email list, and things like that. So I
Sure.
had an audience, but it was at that time after I launched the first course that it really felt more like a business. I was able to make a good amount of income from that and generate a good amount of revenue as well, for it to support me and then eventually leave my day job and run Excel Campus full time.
So it was about a kind of 5, 6 year journey from, hey, I got this blog, it's a hobby, I'll throw some stuff up there, to, oh, I could start selling a little bit, to, hey, let's release a course. Oh, this is big enough. I built enough of an audience. Maybe I should really turn this into a business.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about a 6-year overnight success, I would say. Because I think it's often misconception is like you just, you start a website, you start social media, and you throw up a course, and it's it's instant success, and it's definitely it's not the case for me. For others, it might have worked, but
Yeah, there's always the occasional flash in the pan or over. I don't want to say overnight. Even that I hesitate to use because there's still a lot of work. But there's some that are much shorter, much quicker builds to success, and some that are much longer. But really, any sustained success, I would say, is really never overnight.
Yeah, I agree, and I think especially with this industry, or with Excel and financial modeling kind of being the arena there, it's something that takes a long time to learn. It's not something you're going to learn overnight, anyways. It's like all the kind of experiences we just talked about. You have to have those in order to teach how not to do those things or how to learn from them. So it takes a
Well,
lot of.
it's kind of funny. I'm one of the other Excel MVPs gave me access to one of his courses. I've been going through it all, and it's surprising how many little tips and tricks I've picked up that, so, even some concepts I've seen people use a lot, I've never really used myself and didn't quite fully grasp them. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, that totally makes sense. Now I get it. And so there's just always more to learn, whether it's modeling, Excel,
yeah.
in these areas, especially when you have a technical field and a tool that, right, a billion people are using. It has to have a lot of use cases that many people are using it.
Yeah. And the use cases that are absolutely endless in terms of what you can use it for, how you can solve problems. And even if you're solving a very specific problem, there's at least 10 different ways to solve it with different formulas and, tools and features of Excel. So there's always something new to learn. No one knows it all, and no one ever will, because it's just such a vast tool.
I was gonna vote for you as the person who's gonna know it all. You and Ken, it's a race.
Ken's got me. Yeah. I mean, he's a walking encyclopedia. But even that, like, there's a whole set of engineering functions that I've never used.
Yeah, exactly. No, I see all those and I'm just like, yeah, I'm never using these.
Yeah, I have no use. So there's just, yeah, even with that, it's just stuff I will never learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's what now? Almost 600 formulas, I believe, kind of functions.
Last I heard, yeah, over 500, probably, yeah, close to
Yeah, I
600.
know it's over 5. I'm just trying to think if the number keeps growing as they adding more and more of these dynamic arrays and things, so it's hard to keep track. But I mean, I guess I maybe know, 100, 150 I use in any kind of regular basis, maybe 30.
Yeah, that would be an interesting test. I don't even know, like, it'd be interesting to go through them and say, oh yeah, I know this one. I don't never heard of that one, or a lot of variations of each of them too. Some older legacy ones. So
Maybe it could be fun. We'll have a show. We'll do some kind of Excel Jeopardy
that
with
would be fun.
functions. That actually be kind of fun. I bet I could get a couple MVPs. Maybe we'll do that as a little webinar, turn it into a podcast, and have a little just nothing but in Excel Jeopardy, different categories of functions,
Yeah.
and asking different questions about them, how they work. What's the third argument in this function? And just watch the glaze, and there'll always be somebody that'll be, I know that one.
Yeah. That would be fun. Sign me up.
All right. We'll definitely keep that in mind. When I have a little more free time, I'll put that together, which means could be a while.
Yeah. Okay. A Sunday
But no,
part.
I definitely will consider that. That could be fun. So we'll put you on the short list for that one.
Okay. I might have to be the commentator. There's people that know a lot more than me. So it's like the esports thing. I'm better at the commentating because I can't compete.
Have you competed much in the esports? Speaking of that, we'll come back to another question I had, but I know you do the esports announcing. How did you become the announcer or the commentator versus competing? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the coordinators have originally just reached out to a bunch of MVPs and trying to just get people to commentate on some of their live streams. And I thought, oh, it'd be fun. It's kind of interesting. So I gave it a shot, and they invited me back. So I must have done a decent job, and or no one else wanted to do it. I don't know, either one. But yeah, and then it just kind of grew from there. Oz and I commentated a few events together, and that kind of, we have a pretty good chemistry, I'd say, him and I, and have a lot of fun together. So just kind of grew from there. I never really competed. They always send the cases before the event, so I get a chance to solve them. And on my own, I'll set a 30-minute timer, because the events or the challenges are 30 minutes in length, when the competitors do compete. So I'll set a 30-minute timer, see how far I can get. And it's usually just not not very far. Or the thing that gets me is that I don't read the instructions clearly, and then I have mistakes in my model. So it'd take a lot of practice. But the competitors now at the pro level are so fast. They're so unbelievably fast at solving these things that I wouldn't stand a chance. And it's amazing to watch.
Isn't it amazing to watch what some of them do so quickly in Excel?
Yeah.
I see some of the lambdas they build, and I'm like, I couldn't build that lambda in 30 minutes, let alone solve this case.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have lambdas, which are, custom functions that they're using. They have a library of those, so they've memorized what all those do, what inputs they need for those to, in order for them to calculate properly. So, yeah, it's absolutely incredible, and it's fun to be a part of.
Well, my background is in FP&A. I am also passionate about financial modeling. Like many financial modelers, I was self-taught. Then I discovered the Financial Modeling Institute, the organization that offers the Advanced Financial Modeler Program. I am a proud holder of the AFM. Preparing for the AFM exam made me a better modeler. If you want to improve your modeling skills, I recommend the AFM program. Podcast listeners save 15% on the AFM program. Just use code PODCAST. No, it really is. So I'm curious, what do you enjoy most about being an announcer? Like, what's been your favorite part about that? Because it's just unique, right? I'm sure when you tell people, if you go to a dinner party and it comes up, people are like, wait, you announce Excel competitions where people are working in a spreadsheet. I'm sure you get some interest comments with that from time to time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, they don't either understand it, believe it, and then when I tell them I've been on ESPN doing this, it's like, they really don't understand or believe it, and then that's definitely, like, one of the highlights, I'd say, of this, is that it's gotten a lot of publicity, and, been featured on like some of the ESPN channels, like ESPN2 and ESPNU and stuff. So that's definitely a benefit. But ultimately, I do like the competition aspect of it. I think it's, because it's time based, it's essentially scoring the most amount of points in 30 minutes. I really like that competition aspect, because it does come down to the wire often. So that's my favorite part about it. I'm always trying to figure out ways that we can improve the broadcast to make that, that suspense kind of more visible and stuff like that. So I'm always thinking about that, and along with the commentating too, because I think it's a lot of fun. But there's so much going on, right? When you're looking at someone's spreadsheet, they're solving a complex financial case or a complex model in a short amount of time, that it's hard to follow sometimes.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest things. I kind of likened it a little bit to baseball. And what I mean by that, a lot of people go to a baseball game, but how many people go to a baseball game that actually keep score? Or do you go for the social aspect and you're watching occasionally and enjoying the environment? Because personally, for me, if I spent the whole 30 minutes just really trying to follow what was going on everybody's screen, I don't know that I'd enjoy it much. It's much more the social, the excitement to see who had won, and just the atmosphere. And that to me is baseball. Yes, there are the diehards, and we know some of them. They're at those competitions that, oh wow, they pulled out this formula, and they're really just 100% into it. But I don't think that's the majority of people. Curious your thoughts on that kind of analogy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it like that, but I like that. Like, that's definitely something to think about. I also, like, from a broadcast perspective, I think of it like golf. Because with golf, even if you don't watch golf, essentially you're watching one player on one hole, and, hit one shot at a time. And then you're moving around to different players that are on different holes. And that's very similar to how this competition works, because we're watching individual players on their own Excel workbook.
Yep.
So in terms of a broadcast perspective, it's a lot about kind of jumping around to these different scenes and kind of picking up where each individual player is. And that's probably a different viewing than like golf, I mean, than baseball, like what you're talking about. So you're talking
Yeah,
about
that's
more.
a really good I hadn't thought about golf, but that's a really good analogy, especially for watching, right? Because you
Yeah.
might pick up hole 16 and see someone hole something in, and then all of a sudden they're taking you to somebody dropping something in the lake.
Yes. Yeah.
Just
Exactly. Yeah.
which might be that person who just got eliminated because they're doing, eliminating someone every 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's exactly kinda how I look at it, but I like the baseball analogy, kind of the more communal, enjoying the game, not really worried about every single strike or, pitch location and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I think golf's another great one, and because yeah, I think it's a challenge announce announce something like that. I mean, I haven't done it. I've competed in one, and it's on YouTube somewhere. If you wanna watch somebody completely suck, feel free to watch it. I was in first for about 20 seconds because I answered a bonus question quicker than everybody else, went to the bottom, bombed the rest of the thing, and just stayed there.
You just need a screenshot of that one moment where you're in first, that's it.
I know I do need to go find that video and just snap that out.
Yeah, well, kudos for you to competing, like, that's amazing that you
That was my first time ever competing. They live streamed my first one ever.
that's brave.
I figured what's the worst I do? Look stupid, and I did. I'm okay with that.
Those challenges are very difficult, and they change every time. That's the thing about this is different than a lot of sports is every time the field is different, and the players don't know what's coming. They haven't studied the model, so they don't know what they're going to get. So that makes it extremely challenging, unlike probably almost any other sport.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is definitely challenging, and they can be totally different types. Like, I think a little bit like, tennis. Some people are very good on clay court or grass. Some people are competing might be really good with, some of these cases are very much positional, like you're moving around a map, but maybe they're not near as good as some other one where you're solving a different type of problem.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Like running totals come into the play a lot that it can be challenging. So yeah, just kind of having those different skill sets, yeah, can really play into the outcome.
Now, did you ever think you'd be on a podcast where we talk Excel Esports, tennis, golf, and baseball in the same podcast?
Never, but I love it. I mean, this is it for me.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, I don't think I've ever covered all that. This could
Yeah.
be
Okay.
interesting.
Okay. This is the first for for the podcast. Awesome.
And so, one more question around kind of financial modeling World Cup that I want to ask at Excel Esports. People often go, "Hey, I should do something like that," or like, "How do you do something like that?" What advice would you offer to people who are listening? Obviously, our audience is financial modelers primarily. People that are really building models, spending a lot of time in Excel. What would you tell them if they're considering doing something like this?
Well, I'd absolutely encourage them. I mean, I do this on the broadcast all the time, and I really don't have. It's just I don't have like an affiliation with the company, so there's no like financial reason for me to say this. But I think it's just something that is going to help you practice and improve in your job, and it's a great way to challenge yourself too. Yeah, I'd highly encourage people to just sign up and try, and even if they don't feel like they're going to be the best in the world, still give it a shot. I've even within our training programs, we've recently launched a weekly challenges feature where we publish an Excel challenge, kind of similar to these esports challenges. We've launched these weekly challenges where it's very similar to that, and it's really helping our members just push themselves to learn new skills by opening a file that they're maybe not familiar with and need to learn, how to problem solve and critically think through that. So it really helps develop those skills that you can apply elsewhere.
That's great, and there's a lot of them on LinkedIn. I know Oz does his weekly challenge on LinkedIn, and there are several other people who regularly do challenges. So, I mean, I think the thing is, whether it's Excel Esports with Financial Modeling World Cup, the more you can gamify, the more you can have fun in learning, the more it's gonna help you in Excel, and you're just gonna pick up new ways. So, whatever it might be. I think it's really beneficial to find something like that. It's like the people who used to, not as much anymore, but the discussion boards, like going and helping answer people's questions, a great way to get better at Excel. I can't remember the last time I look at a discussion board about Excel's problems.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, like, yeah, those are kind of fading a little bit now in this new era, but, it does, yeah, that was where I originally learned all of my knowledge from. It's kinda dating me a bit, but I was really the original, Excel knowledge base, and you still see posts from, 20 years, 25 years old that are still relevant today, on Excel topics, so
I mean, I still sometimes, you Google something and I find them and we'll look at them, but it's not like it used to be where that's where the majority of people's knowledge would come from, is spending time on those boards every day.
yeah, and, it's interesting, like, now that we have these AI tools to help answer a lot of questions, and a lot of people don't fully know or understand this, but all of the knowledge that the AI tools have is based on what they've learned from the internet. And when it
Yes.
comes to Excel, because there's such this rich, long history, a lot of times AI can just hallucinate because it's reading data from 25 years ago on a VLOOKUP and kind of mashing that with a new XLOOKUP, and you might get some kind of, answer that kind of combines both of those, and it's not really 100% right. A lot of that comes from the fact that, the tool has been around so long. There's so much information, so much knowledge out there that it's definitely getting better. But when you've come across those challenges, know that a lot of times it's that's the reason.
No, it's a great point and kind of, fun, controversial take. When I had Ken Pulse on it, we were talking AI
Okay.
and kind of asked his opinion on something. And he goes, "It is the greatest data theft in the world." Basically, they've stole everybody's content.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've talked with Ken on this too, kind of privately, and I don't disagree there. I think there's definitely challenges with that. I try not to get too frustrated with it. But yeah, in a sense, it is the tool that's learned from everybody else. So, for good or bad, that's what it is.
There is some frustration sometimes to people, and they're all trying to figure that out. Okay, do you compensate? How different is it from somebody looking at a bunch of pictures and learn to draw one? Where's the and so we won't get into that whole detail, but it could be frustrating. He was very strong in his opinion, and we had a good conversation about that. But regardless of the some of the frustration, it's amazing what it can teach us. If you're not using it, you're missing out. Like, if you look back, say 2.5 years ago, kind of when it first came out, I'm going to guess you're getting quite a bit of efficiency from different AI tools today when Gen AI came out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, absolutely. Like, and it's improved so much, right? They all have. All the top tier LLMs have really improved a lot. So, yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to use them, figure out how you can use them, how they're best for your role and what you're doing, to help assist you in your work.
I'm with you. It's great for podcasts. It definitely makes putting together the summaries after the episode so much quicker than when I used to go listen to every single episode after the fact.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I just dump the transcript in and it gives me the summary and then I tweak it. Saves me 30, 40 minutes on every single episode just right there.
Yeah, amazing, right? And it does it in 10 seconds or so,
Yeah,
a minute maybe.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
unbelievable.
I'm curious. You've been a Microsoft MVP 11 straight years now. Is that what we're?
I think that's the tally. Yeah, that's the count. Been a long
Wow,
road.
I'm on year 1, so I got a while to go. But
And
that's amazing.
congratulations, by the way. I think I said that last time around, but yeah, congratulations.
No, I really appreciate that. It's been fun. It's a great community. I learn a lot, and you get people. I'm sure you've had people ask you. They're always like, what does it take to become a Microsoft MVP, or what advice would you offer if somebody's listening and they're like, yeah, I think that'd be cool. I'd like to, kind of strive to achieve that.
Yeah, it's a great question. It is a very common question that I've gotten over the years. The short answer is I don't know, because they kind of keep it a secret what constitutes your contributions, but ultimately it comes down to contributions, and it's really just. I mean, you do such a great job of it. You have what, 3 podcasts that you do, Paul? Is that right? Yeah. So you're constantly talking, about Microsoft tools. In my case, I'm mostly talking about Excel and Power BI and some other tools, Power Automate and things like that. But really, it's about talking about those tools in whatever fashion you do, whether that's podcasting or YouTube or blogging or whatever it is. And just being passionate, kind of an evangelist, for the product is, I think, really what it takes. And it's probably, I'd say most of the people that I know that have become MVPs over the year, that's not their sole focus. It's really that they're passionate about the tool and the kind of the MVP award, because it is an award that Microsoft gives out. It's not something you can take a test for or, qualify for in that fashion. So for most people, the award is kind of a byproduct of just all the contribution they've done over the years.
Bad financial models can lead to bad decisions, or worse. So, how do you minimize the risk of a bad model? You make sure the models you build are great. Financial Modeling Institute developed the Advanced Financial Modeler Accreditation Program to help modelers like you. The AFM program offers a step-by-step approach to building world-class financial models. The program ensures that you know the best practices in model design and structure, and will help you brush up on your Excel and accounting skills too. Be the one on your team to build great models. If you want to impress your boss and your clients, get AFM accredited. Podcast listeners, save 15% on the AFM program. Just use code podcast at fminstitute.com/podcast. I think that's a good way to put it. I like that, because it's really, the contribution is key. You have to have a technical level of proficiency. They got to be comfortable, you know how to use the tool and you can speak to it, but it's really that community engagement, however you choose to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, for anyone that's, wants to do that, and there's like some great benefits, right? We get to talk with the product team at Microsoft, see what's coming next in the product, and of course, connect with other MVPs in this network and stuff like that. So there's definitely some great benefits. But I'd say for anyone listening that's looking to do that, just continue to do what you're passionate about, and all that stuff will kind of follow.
Yeah, totally agree. Just contribute. I never started out to, hey, I want to be a Microsoft MVP. It was something I enjoyed doing. And over time, it just kind of, somebody said, hey, can I nominate you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, why not? I mean, I was flattered.
That's great.
Kind of, when I got the email from him, and because he asked me first if it was okay with him if I nominate. I'm like, yeah, that'd be fine. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, when I got the award, I didn't even know what it was. I mean, it was a long time ago, and I don't think it was as calm. I still don't know how many people really know what it is, but I think nowadays it's a little more common.
I would agree. It's better known today than 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's a great program. So,
all right, we're going to move into kind of some standard questions here in a minute that we ask almost every guest, but I want to ask you one more first. You mentioned how much you love helping people. Do you have maybe a favorite memory, moment, experience, from teaching, consulting, just working with people that really has resonated with you, where you've kind of made a huge difference and it's just kind of stuck with you?
yeah, that's a great question. I think, there's several over the years. I've been focusing lately because I mentioned earlier that I got my start with VBA, especially kind of doing data cleansing type work. And since Power Query came along, I know we mentioned Ken. Ken is my Jesus for Power Query. Ken, I think it was in my first MVP summit. I was sitting next to Ken, and I was in awe of everyone in the room. All those that came before me, big names, including Ken. Ken's written several books, and he's been around forever. And anyways, I was sharing kind of this VBA macro add-in really that I developed to do essentially what Power Query does with an unpivot, the unpivot feature in Power Query. I'd written a very complex macro to do that. And Ken was like, oh, that's cool, but you could do that in Power Query. And then he spent the next 15 minutes like walking through, it was still a complex report with multiple headers, multiple sheets. Like it wasn't easy. But essentially, to get the data in a tabular format so we could use it for pivot tables and reporting and forecasting, it's a few button clicks in Power Query, where this macro took me forever to write.
I'm sure there was a moment of, "Wow, that's amazing," and, "Are you kidding me? I spent how much time building this?"
Yeah, exactly. A lot of that, yeah. I was in disbelief for a bit, but I eventually, kind of, caught on. And so since then, anyway, long story short, since then, I've been teaching Power Query more and more because what I've learned is that a lot of a data analyst's time is spent cleaning up data. There's studies that shows almost 80% of our time can just be spent cleaning data, right? And that's the problem that Power Query helps solve, to automate that entire process. So I've been spending more time doing that. One story that just kind of comes to mind is a student of ours. Her name was Sherry, and on LinkedIn, she posted that she saved her company over $500,000 by implementing Power Query in her work. It was over, I think that was over a 2-year period, so it wasn't like an overnight thing, but she just calculated the number of labor hours saved from them having to prepare, I think it was a budget process and all the data that goes along with that, right? The iterations and stuff. So just being able to consolidate that with this, relatively simple automation. Power Query doesn't require coding. Most of it you can code with it, but most of it you just do with button clicks. It's kind of a low code, no code solution built right into Excel, also built into Power BI. So that's, I think that in general is something that I'd try and bring more awareness to, because it can be such a time saver for so many Excel users that are just kind of bored and frustrated with data cleanup, data prep type work.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I preach that tool all the time. When I first learned it, for me, it was 2017, and I'd
Okay.
heard of it, but I'd never
Yeah.
really used it. I knew what it was, but I was working on a project and I was able to build this project. But at first, I'm running it all through an Access database instead of using and then putting it into the data model and flattening all and it took quite a while to really figure out what I was doing with Power Query and Power Pivot and all those, but it saved
Yeah.
me so much time. And the rest of the business thought I was working magic. They're like, "Wow, you got that report?" And I'm sitting there thinking, this thing's really clunky, but it's a start. You know, so, yeah, it was huge. It really helped get me promoted because I worked at a company where the data was the worst I've ever seen, much worse than any other company I'd worked at. And so it allowed me to get insights and information that other people couldn't in any kind of timely manner. And,
Yeah.
that got noticed by management, and it really helped advance my career there. And so I attribute a lot of it to what I was able to do with Power Query and Power Pivot as well, and then a little bit of Power BI, but it all started with Power Query.
Interesting. Yeah, that's where it also, I mean, that's really kind of where the data analysis process starts, is of course getting your data, cleaning it up. And a lot of times, if you're spending 80% of your time doing that work, then you really don't have much time left for analysis, calculations, preparing dashboards, reporting, and all that other stuff.
That's only if you wanna have a life.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, just that small little thing called a life. Yeah,
That's kinda what I joke with people. I was like, "Well, it all depends if you wanna see your family or not."
yeah, yeah. Anyone with kids should learn Power Query. If you don't have kids yet, or
There's a tagline. I might have to try that. We will put the episode tagline. "If you do not have kids, you do not need to listen." Just kidding.
there's a title for a YouTube video.
Alright, so here's kind of the standard. We're gonna go to rapid fire in 1 second, but I have just 2 I wanna ask kinda quickly. First, what's your favorite Excel shortcut? You have a favorite?
The one I use most commonly now is Control Shift V to paste values. And I mention that because a lot of people don't know that on newer versions of Excel, Microsoft has released that shortcut. So you don't have to use like Alt ESV Enter anymore.
I
If
know
you're on the
I need to switch over. I'm still an Alt ESV guy.
Okay,
So,
yeah. So
you're preaching to the choir on that one. I haven't been able to bring myself to make the switch.
that's one. Since we're talking Power Query, Alt F12 opens the Power Query editor. So that's another one that a lot don't know if you are using Excel. I'm sorry, are using Power Query. Yeah.
Sure. Alright, and so this is one we start asking every guest, and we get some really kind of fun answers. Tell me about the most unique, the most fun thing you've created a model for in your personal life using Excel.
Okay, so my son and I have an 8-year-old son, and he's really into Pokemon and like collecting the cards. For anyone that has kids or is an adult that does Pokemon, they'll know this. And if you haven't, or if you don't,
I got the
Pokemon.
Pokemon Go on my phone, and my daughter has about 12 Pokemon books, so
Okay, so you're in the world. Yeah, my son entered this world about a year or two ago, and he lives in this Pokemon world. So anyways, he wanted to make his own cards. So we created this Excel file where I basically used like shapes in Excel to recreate a Pokemon card. And then he can draw a picture of the actual character. And we like take a picture of that, scan it in, and put it in Excel. And then he also can fill out a table with all of the character's characteristics, right?
Yeah,
Their
the attributes, like it's defense
attributes.
or
Yeah.
whatever, all the different, yeah.
Yeah. All that stuff. And then the card there's another sheet where it has a card and it's kind of interactive. So you can select from a drop down of the Pokemon character's name and it'll bring up the actual card. And that's where we've gotten so far. Our idea was that you could have a battle between two cards. You could like kind of randomly pick two of the cards and then he could do a battle in them, between those two Pokemon.
I bet he has fun with that. I bet he really likes what you've built.
Yeah, it was fun for both of us, me too, because I got to geek out on Excel and learn more about Pokemon. So
Cool. That's fun. All right, so now we're going to move to the rapid fire section. Here's how this section works. I always like to lay the ground rules. No, it depends. We're not a consultant here. You got to say yes or no. And then at the end, you can elaborate on one or two because I recognize there's nuance to all of these.
okay.
Make sense? So we'll hold till the end. You're just kind of quickly answering each of them. Should take us about a minute. And then the one or two you're most passionate about, like I got to explain. I can't just say yes or no. You can go ahead and elaborate.
Okay, I got it. I'll try my
So
best.
you ready?
Yes.
All right. Circular references in models, yes or no?
No.
VBA.
Yes.
Do you prefer a horizontal or vertical financial model? Horizontal being lots of sheets, or vertical kind of doing all your schedules in one sheet?
Vertical.
All right. Dynamic arrays in models, yes or no?
Yes.
Fully dynamic models, like doing everything 100% dynamic in a financial model.
No.
Okay. External workbook links.
No.
That's most people's response. It's usually a sound no. Named ranges.
Eesh. No.
All
Begrudgingly.
right. Do you follow a formal standard when modeling, like FAST or SMART or any of those, or just kind of have your own principles you use?
No. Own principles.
That's what I figured. Okay. Should financial modelers learn Python in Excel?
Not yet.
What about Power Query?
Yes.
Power BI?
No.
Okay. Will Excel ever die? And remember, you're in Microsoft MVP. No, I'm just kidding.
Never. Oh, Power BI. I meant to say yes on Power BI. Sorry.
Okay.
That's one.
All good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a no on Excel. Will ever die. Do you think AI will build the models for us in the future?
Yeah. To some degree. I think with assistance.
Okay, fair. Yeah, with a
Yeah.
human in the loop, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe financial models are the #1 corporate decision-making tool?
Yes.
My favorite answer I've got on that is someone said no, and I go, well, what is? They're all politics. Hard to argue with that one.
Yeah. Well, I would say a close second is a blindfold and a dartboard.
Yeah, Random Walk Down Wall Street, if you've ever read that.
Oh, no, I haven't. Okay.
It's kind of the whole idea that basically you can throw darts and you're going to be as successful as trying to pick stocks.
Okay. Yeah. Same premise. But
Yeah, same premise.
no, I was saying you still need the financial model to back that up.
Yeah, exactly. What is your lookup function of choice? What's your favorite lookup function?
XLOOKUP.
Okay. And then which one do you want to elaborate on from that list?
Wow. That's I don't know. I said a lot of like maybes. I don't know.
You
Like,
didn't say yes or no, but your voice had a little more of a maybe.
yeah, had a lot of maybe in it. What's most interesting or like the hot topic for you from that list?
I think Python's an interesting one right now because that's a hot topic. Always anything around AI is interesting. I think, fully dynamic array models is another hot topic. So there's a couple if you want to elaborate on just, a minute or two on one or two of those.
Okay, yeah, because I did kind of with Python. I said not yet, and I think it's and it kind of blends into AI too, because I think like there is probably already a shift and will be a shift in how Excel files and financial models are created and managed. AI is really good at coding, like unbelievably good at generating code, and specifically Python code. So I think and I think right now there's a pretty big disconnect, even though Excel has Python built into it now. I don't know what like the user adoption is of that, and it could probably be, I don't know. I still think there's a bit of a disconnect between kind of this classic financial modeling where you have formulas and cells, and you're creating reports and calculations and things like that, and then kind of the Python piece. But I think there's a gap there because AI is really good at generating Python code and analyzing data through that. Like, I think, like, these LLMs aren't necessarily great at just analyzing data on their own, but they can create Python code to do the data analysis,
Yeah,
right?
they're great at creating the code. Fully agree.
Yeah. So I think that's where those two merge in the future. I don't know what that looks like for Excel, or other kind of tools, because the disconnect really is the complexity of Python code versus the managers and finance people that are going to consume these reports and still kind of want to have that control in Excel, right? That's why I think Excel's had such a long lifespan, is you still have that control to make changes and stuff like that to your data and your model. So when you kind of push all that into a Python script, you lose some of that, and kind of the blending of those two in the future, I think there'll be impact there. I don't know what it is.
That makes sense. I appreciate that answer. Why do you just say no? I'd love to get just a quick thought on fully dynamic models yet. Why do you think we're not quite there yet?
I think like I love dynamic arrays, and you're talking about dynamic arrays, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm talking about dynamic arrays. So, right, building a model, you 100% adjust. It's fully dynamic with dynamic arrays.
Yeah, I love dynamic arrays. So I'm going to say this, and it's going to get some pushback. I don't think they're feature complete yet.
I would actually agree with you if it makes you feel better. We can both get pushed back together.
And like the biggest one, in my opinion, is just formatting, right? They don't spill formatting, so you have to go apply number formats. You have to pre-plan that. So if the range is going to extend longer, you got to, pre-plan how long that range is going to extend in order to apply number formatting there. Yes, you can use conditional formatting as kind of a workaround to that. But that's really for, a lot of people listening to this, well, yeah, I just use conditional formatting. It's easy, but that's really kind of pro level stuff, I would say. So for the everyday user to be able to model something and not have formatting applied, there's other nuances too, but I'd say that's the biggest one right now. So it's just not feature complete yet for me to say you can go do everything with dynamic arrays and it's going to be easy. They don't, another one is like they kind of work in Excel tables, but they don't spill in Excel tables. So they don't really work in Excel tables. So you kind of have, then it becomes the trade-off of, do I use an Excel table for this versus do I use dynamic arrays? You'll run into those trade-offs. So that's my reason for the no there.
No, I think that makes sense. The other one that I say is, like when you think three statement modeling, managing your corkscrews, right? You got to use some complex lambda. And I just think that's, even though, yes, you could find someone and just, put it into your machine and use it. I still think the audibility, the challenges there, we're just not at that level. You either got to be using some really complex math or some really complex lambdas to solve corkscrews and some just little unique challenges that you get in more complex models.
Interesting. Yeah, that is really interesting. I agree. Lambdas is another one that's just, it's amazing what it can do. But the implementation with, being in the name manager and things like that, I think there's still room for improvement there. I think it's easy to just point the finger at Microsoft. They're up against a very strong challenge of trying to make things compatible, backwards compatible. So, kudos to them for even adding this stuff and trying, because they got to make it all back compat, and a lot of limitations there.
Yeah, I would not want to be the one trying to figure all that out. I'll say that. I enjoy using them, but don't make me the person who has to figure it out. All right, so last question I want to ask before I let you go. If our audience wants to learn more about the work you do, the courses you have, your different offerings, or potentially get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, again, my brand is Excel Campus. So you can find us at excelcampus.com. And then we have a popular YouTube channel, like you mentioned, which is also Excel Campus.
Perfect. So we'll put those in the show notes for people that want to see some of your videos. I know I've watched more than a few over the years and learned some things. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining me today, Jon. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Paul, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Financial Modeler's Corner was brought to you by the Financial Modeling Institute. This year, I completed the Advanced Financial Modeler certification, and it made me a better financial modeler. What are you waiting for? Visit FMI at www.fminstitute.com/podcast and use code podcast to save 15% when you enroll in one of the accreditations today.